The following is a presentation of the Eagles Sports Network.
All right, back at Berktar Stadium as Carson-Newman falls to the West Georgia Wolves, 45-7. I'm Adam Cavalier, alongside Carson-Newman head football coach Mike Clowney. Mike, you and I talked leading up to this one that you had a lot of youth on your team. And the quote that keeps coming to my head is from Chuck Benson, and the only thing consistent about youth is how inconsistent it is. That certainly felt like it was true here today.
Yeah, I probably should have had a meeting with Chuck before this game to make sure that we can kind of go over that. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that showed up today. And I think, we'll probably talk a little bit more about the game, but I think that's going to be kind of an overriding factor as we talk.
You think about how this one started. You were only down 14 to nothing early. You get the long kickoff return for a touchdown, short field. Malcolm Hogue punches it in. You're within 7, and then never could quite find the offensive footing. Again, how much of that was that inconsistency rearing its head versus West Georgia doing things that made you uncomfortable?
I think West Georgia is a good football team. And I think, we talked about, as a program going into this game, one of the biggest things that we want to do is come out and see exactly where we're at, because it is a young football team and they really haven't been in a game environment. Even over the summer, we had a lot of stuff, kind of inconsistencies there to where we didn't always practice the way we really wanted to. So this was really our first real challenge to kind of see where you're at. And so we knew coming out of this game there are going to be a lot of things we need to fix. You hope you can fix it with a victory, but, that's not the situation we're in right now.
What's the mentality like as you go forward 16 days to let this one sit in your mouth and have that sour taste before Wingate comes to town?
That's the thing that we just challenge our guys within the weight room. The biggest thing we want to do is kind of come back after this game and, number one, we got to look at the man in the mirror. That's each of us individually. Like, that's as coaches, that's every player. To kind of figure out what our role was, what were the things that we need to do better. That's one thing that we'll do as coaches in the morning. We'll get in and we'll watch this video and just talk about, what were the mistakes that were made and, what can we do to fix it. There are a lot of mistakes. The biggest thing we talked to our guys in the locker room was, most of the heart and effort, I think, at times were there. But, sometimes the focus, the things that you do, a lot of times with young guys, the things that you do in practice every day, you do those for a reason because that's what you want to see and you want it to show up in the game. But a lot of times young guys have that tendency, we kind of revert back to what we've always done. And, we've got to get to the point to where if we play more than one college football game and we understand that, this game's a little bit different from playing in high school for some of the younger guys. Like one little step or one mistake can really be a big difference in a play.
How frustrating is it that you've had some guys that have been in the program for 2.5, 3 years, and yet this was snap number 1 for them between a redshirt year and what happened last year? How difficult is it mentally to work through that at times?
It's really awkward because, Michael Paul's the guy that got hurt. So Mike and I were in the office the other day talking. Mike's been here 4 years. And, this was kind of like his year to have a chance to play, and he got an injury. The same thing, you're in that situation with Malcolm Hogue and EJ. I know those guys a little bit specific because I was in the running back room. So I'm like, man, you guys have been here 4 years, and, they've really been waiting to play for 4 years. So even though they've been here playing 4 years, this is their first time, Malcolm Hogue's first real time interjecting himself in the game and being ready to play. So it's different. It really is different.
Adam Cavalier alongside Carson-Newman head football coach Mike Clowney here on the Domino's postgame report. What surprised you from today?
I thought that, we would put ourselves in position probably a little bit more. So the amount of mistakes we made, I knew we would make some. I didn't think we would make as many as we did. I think it'll be interesting to go back and watch the game. We talked about the offensive line and their inexperience. There were points in times that I thought they did some things well. They made some mistakes naturally. Micah Young coming in the fourth quarter, we put him in at quarterback. I thought, he did a pretty decent job of kind of putting us in position to move the football late in the game.
Interesting too. Granted, game pressure was off at that point, but you were able to run the football and get a good push there late.
That's the biggest thing offensively. It's it's what Coach Person and I talk. Is making sure right there we find an identity. One thing that you can do is you can almost sometimes try to do too much. So we've got to kind of find the rhythm and figure out who we are there. A lot of this stuff is new. We're trying to mesh a little bit of new with the old. And we've got to find the best way to mesh all that together with the guys that we have to make sure we can get this thing to work the right way.
Alonzo Houston, double-digit tackle performance. Rondro Peebles, 9 tackles. Vintage performances out of some of your defenders. But again, it takes 11. How pleased are you with what your linebacking core did, where you have some veteran status?
And I think that's your thing. Like, those guys have been in the games. They've done it before. And you've really got to hinge on them until we can get some of the other guys to where we need them. So we have to have those guys make those plays. It was really good watching Alonzo fill a couple of holes a couple of times.
Turn your attention, obviously, to Joe Reich and the Wingate Bulldogs. Long layoff. How much do you wad this one up, toss it in the trash? How much do you dwell on it as you move forward to open up sack play 2 weeks and 2 days from now?
You know, I think as far as like what happened on the scoreboard, I think we have to be ready to throw that away, but we can't throw away the things that went wrong. You know, we've got to spend most of our time next week kind of looking at what we're doing and who we're doing it with to make sure that we're in the right position to kind of grow and develop that whole man in the mirror mentality to where we can make sure that when Wingate shows up, you know, we're a better Carson-Newman. You know, a lot of what happened today wasn't just West Georgia. We created a lot of those mistakes.
All right, Mike Clowney, thanks for the time. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.
It's Carson-Newman head football coach Mike Clowney. We'll continue on the Domino's postgame report. Player interviews head your way after these messages on the Eagle Sports Network.